Okay, today on the decision table, it's a little different. Why? Because I did have someone booked in and they decided they didn't want to do it today. No, I don't know what happened. They've swapped over to another date. So it's all good. But instead of, you know, leaving another day go by, I thought I would just have a little conversation around some of the learnings that I've been having lately. And I think it's really important. By the way, you've got the casual Kira Marie, which probably means that also you've got kids, family that could walk in at any time. So we'll just roll with it, right? Because it's later in the day, it's noisier at my house. And like I said, I was meant to have it in earlier and then it didn't work out. So here's the thing, I think there's a lot of learning we can do as we continue to grow. And that's why one of the new approaches to leadership, I believe, is that we use the lens of continuously evolving, knowing that although we know a lot, we don't know everything, and there's still lots to keep learning. And in fact, in a lot of cases, when I was traveling around the world, one of the things that I really noticed, and really seriously, it became such a noticeable thing, was the more that I traveled, the more that I realized that I didn't know. In fact, I knew very little because I'd be exposed to different ways of thinking, different ways of eating, different ways of what becomes priority in culture, and why that becomes the priority rather than the things that maybe I grew up around, or different religions, different behaviors, all sorts of different things. I realized that there was just so much that we can continue to keep learning. And for me, that was exciting because I kind of get to a point sometimes where I go, I've heard that. Do you ever have that moment where you go, I've heard that all before? Or if I read another leadership book, it's the same old thing. I've heard it, I've heard it. And I kind of got to that stage even with listening to lots of leaders around the fact that I want to see change, but I'm not really sure how to do that or what that looked like. And so that kind of, like everything, if I can't do something, or it's a limitation in my life, or there's something stopping me from doing something, I will always, if it's priority to me and important enough to me, I will always look for the pathway to actually make sure that I can do that. And so I kind of got to that point. I was like, I want to see change happen. I want to see it not just that we talk about it, that we see a need, but that it actually is put into play, and we do it. And so I was like, okay, how do we do that? What would that need to look like? And so when I was traveling, I saw a lot of that, and I began collecting data, which is what I talk about with the muscle of human intelligence. Our human intelligence is the data, the input that we put into what is the output that we have coming out of us. And that's not just what you do with your brain. Although the brain is an amazing muscle in your body, it is so powerful, and I've learned so much, and I continue actually studying a lot around the brain. Why? Because I think that there's so much that I don't know around that, and if I can just learn a new way, here's a little tip for you that I've been listening a lot to, and that is around the pupil and movement with the eye, and how that actually, if you have someone that's on a spectrum, or ADHD or ADD, or even a lot of the things that we've known as mental health issues, if you get to the bottom of them, and I know this is probably gonna, be a dispute in some cases, but there's actually some theory around and research done around how a lot of that is the physical that is now creating what's happening in the brain. And this to me is intriguing, and I think that the more that we learn about things, the more then we can take responsibility to maybe putting foods in that might work. Maybe sleeping more, because we know that that will help our brain go into recovery. And so then we'll function at a higher level. Our productivity will be at peak performance, and we will, of course, move forward in a much quicker capacity and speed. And so things like that absolutely fascinate me, because I think a lot of the things that we hear across the globe, those challenges, those problems that we see and many of us are facing in our own worlds, that actually there are still things that we can control in our own worlds as well. We can control who we hang out with, what environment we want to be involved in or don't want to be involved in. We can create the opportunity for a healthy body, so that we can be functioning at the best level that we can. So there's so many things we can still control in our world. We're not God. I could never take the place of God, and I never want to take place of God. There's a reason there's a God, and I'm not God. And there is also that He's given us a great brain, and we need to use it as a human being. So I'm always learning, like I said, from things that I'm going through. And I think that there's some things lately, even on the decision table with conversations, that's really come out, and I've seen it more and been really conscious of it, not just in the conversations, but then putting it into place as well. And one of them is listening. I didn't realize that I naturally am a listener, and I would have to say, if I was analyzing me and my past, I would say that it's probably because I learnt from my environment when I listened. And what I mean by that is that my environment wasn't always a safe environment. And because of that, I would have to listen really carefully. Was the person coming near me? Did I have an escape route? Was I able to, if I went to pretended I was asleep, they wouldn't bother me? Whatever it was, like there were different things that I began to realize that when I listened well, I could actually be more in control of my situation. So that was one reason I became a listener. The other side of it was that I realized that I thought really differently to other people. And because of that, I actually, when something was asked of me, I would comprehend it in a different way. Example being, I remember many times written on my papers after an exam or a test, Karen Marie's great. You tried really hard. Oh boy, if I hear that one more time. You tried really hard. And there was you didn't understand the question. You answered the question, but it wasn't understood in the way that I expected you to answer that. And because of that, you got it wrong. I was told this many, 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 many times, right? And I think that one of the things because of that was I needed to listen so much and like more. Listen to maybe to the tone in which they said the question, or listen to how other people are responding. Okay, so that's what they're trying to say here. All right, you must answer in the same sort of way. So I found that was a powerful tool. Another reason I listened was because and as I've got older and in my work that I do with global leadership, is that when I listen, I actually hear from different aspects. In other words, different perspectives, where I might have thought of if someone started saying something and I would start going, yeah, so this is what they need, this is how they need it, and this is where they need to go and fix that or get this happening. And I would start putting that on, and then I'd go and say it, and it wouldn't be the right thing. So what I learned was if I actually listened to the question properly, or this story or the example or the scenario, I was able to then diagnose it and prescribe the next thing really easily. And the other thing was when I listened, I was able to action much faster and see change happen because I was so on target. And I trusted myself because I knew that I had listened well to all the signs and listened to myself, and then worked out what thing to say or do next. I say all this because I think it's underestimated, the power of listening. And it's come up several times on the decision table when I've spoken with leaders around listening. And one of the things when I've asked, because I always do when I get off the actual decision table and we speak for a few minutes afterwards, I always ask, for feedback. How was that for you? What did you really like about that? Or what could we do better next time? Or whatever it is, I just want feedback. Feedback is not something to be afraid of. It's something then we can grow from. And one of the things I've said is that I listen really well. And I've never, ever considered me as a good listener. But once I really thought about it, I realized I do it well. And one of the other things that has come from it, because I'm more conscious about listening, was I realized that I had got a strategy around listening. And this strategy is this, and I think it's a really powerful one. It's when you are in a conversation with someone, you ask a question, and I will listen to the answer like we all do. And often I will actually pause again, even when they think they've given me the answer, because I think that there's probably another layer to that. And then they'll start talking that and saying that. And it's actually in that piece that we get the gold. And I find that fascinating because often in the past, I think we would stop at a particular layer and we just get surface conversation. And surface conversations like the everyday kind of conversation that you meet when you're walking down a street or hanging with someone. But if you truly want to know more and learn from that person, we've got to go down the layers. And so that's one of the things that I found from listening. The other thing I've found really interesting from doing all these conversations and around when I think of the importance of the muscle of human intelligence and working it, is asking better questions. I often get out, I don't even often, mostly get told, you ask amazing questions. I've asked amazing questions because I don't want to take you in a certain place. And I think this is really something that I'd really like you to understand. Asking questions isn't because we want to take you from here to here to here and then get you over the line. It is not about that when I'm asking questions. I know that we are trained to do that so much and that's kind of the norm. But in my case, it's actually not why I ask questions. I ask questions because that I'm really curious. And when we're curious, we can keep learning and then develop. And I can learn from that. I gather that data, I put it with the other data that I've been asking questions with, and then I work out the patterns to whether or not this is going to be beneficial to keep with me. Do I get rid of that piece of information? Do I want to move with this one over here? What do I want to do with that? How do they work together? And then I formulate where we're to move on and what pathway to go down to get to the next level. And when you are able to ask the right questions and ask them fast, because there's times when we need to do that, we can gather information and use that information to add value and to speed up. In many cases, actually, it'll create capacity, but it'll also speed what you can do, create velocity in what you can actually action on and progress forward in. So I find that fascinating when you ask questions, being able to really go down layers and learn from that data that we get when we ask the right questions. The other thing about questions and being curious is that maybe you don't even know what next question to ask, or that you might have thought of a question, but it might not be the best way to go, or it might actually take you down a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down, and there's a better question to ask. When you listen, when you ask questions and are curious, you truly want to know what those answers are, and that is when you know you're asking great questions. What I love about the decision table lately, and for those that haven't seen the decision table, and this is the first one, normally I have a and I say an awesome human with me, because what I've realized is there's so many awesome humans across the world, and I just want you to be in on a conversation that I'm going to be having with them so that you can learn from it as well. But also realize, and this is the cool thing, that those that have been on the decision table have often come on here, very, very amazing people in their own rights, in their own sphere of influence, have come on here and realized that I haven't really thought about this, or I'm not really sure that I'm totally clear about what I'm thinking with this question, but together we are pulling it apart and we're questioning it and being curious and figuring out what we're going to take from that, and then how we're going to evolve as we continue to be more effective in our leadership. Well, that's what a conversation's about. That's where I believe we need to keep moving into, is have new conversations, have conversations where maybe we don't know it all and we're still evolving and we can learn from each other. And I think that that's so powerful when you can have awesome humans doing awesome things and you start collaborating in this way. So, the muscle of human intelligence is something that every single one of us has some sort of intelligence within our brain, within our body, within our whole functioning. And it's just, what are you doing with it? How are you using it? And are you still learning? So are you still evolving? It's funny, because what I was going to say was, if this is the first time that you've been on the decision table, then welcome to the decision table, where we talk about anything and everything within, looking through lenses. And the first month this year has been all about the need for a new approach to leadership. And then this month has been all about the importance of the muscle of human intelligence and looking through that lens, and looking at the global leadership landscape and how we do that as a global landscape, but then also as a individual, and then in your own communities or sphere of influences that you have, and then how that's affecting across the globe. It's like this full circle kind of thing. And I think that because we're willing to go wherever that takes us on this table, we've been learning some beautiful things. So I do ask one favor of you, that if you haven't started subscribing to our YouTube channel, I would really appreciate it if you can. We have something like 7 subscribers on there. It's embarrassing but true. Although 7 is my favorite number, can we move from that? Can we get some other subscribers? I would really appreciate. Why? Not because I'm trying to build I am trying to build a YouTube channel, but not because I want to be famous. In fact, that kind of sounds scary. What I do want to do is bring more impact through the awareness that we can bring. I am making sure on the decision table, you guys have phenomenal people to learn from and listen to, and to ask questions. You need to be asking your questions. If you've got a question, then ask it. We will make sure on the decision table at some stage it will get answered. And I find that really exciting. But I'm not one to go out there and sell it to everyone and go, you need to get on this and be there. I just want to do what I'm meant to do, which is have these conversations and then bring leaders together to see how we can collaborate through partnerships. And can I just say that collaboration sounds so beautiful, and yet in many ways I can understand why collaborations across the globe are really tricky. And I have a partnership that I'm in. I've got many partnerships that I'm in, but there's been one that's been really tricky lately, and I've had to learn what I'm willing to do in there, what I'm not willing to do in there, and stick really strongly to what that is, and then make sure that if I am to continue as a part of that I'm continuing as what is true to me, what's true to the company, and what is true to the other partner involved as well. And so in collaborations, there is so much that we need to learn as an individual. So the more we can learn as an individual, the more we can bring to that conversation, the more we can bring to that collaboration, that partnership. And I think that this is so important, that as individuals, we can choose to how much we want to learn, to keep developing, to keep going forward in. It's a choice. And it's often uncomfortable. I have people on here on the decision table I would not normally probably sit beside and have a conversation with, but I'm loving it because I get to see a side of them that is just beautiful and got amazing value. And every single one that has been on the decision table has brought something to the table. And I think that that's what a true collaboration and partnership is all about, is that there is always something you can add to the table. There is always something that someone can add if you let them to add, or if you see the value, or if you create the space that they can speak up and bring what they need to bring to the relationship. And I think there's so much we can keep learning as we continue to go down the pathway of building out collaborations. I'm getting excited because one of the things that I am inviting in April is a group of leaders, and mainly from the decision table actually, to a private session, whatever you call it, a time where I will really present what the Leaders Movement is going to be about and where we want to take that. There will be a commitment for leaders to make. What are they going to commit to as a collective from when we have that private space session, whatever you want to call it. And from that, I hope too that as a collective we will come up with things that will bring the bigger change, and that we won't just have a nice conversation here on the decision table, but we will actually begin to shift what is happening across the globe. And the only way we can do that is if a collective of amazing, awesome humans like yourself come together and are willing to commit as a collective to be the change and bring the change. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's part of this evolving. I don't have all that sorted out right now, but I know that one of the things that have come from this feedback on the decision table has been, and it's so funny because it's a lot of what I've been writing about for way before the pandemic hit. A year and a half before that, I began writing about what I saw as isolation, and that I saw that the solution to that was collaboration. And that's what really developed out into my company. Was I realized that if we were to be a role model to collaborative ecosystem, then for that to happen, that I needed to create a way in which we could build partnerships, and that's what we're doing with everything that we build out on in my company. And that sounds so grand and scary at the same time. And the Leaders Movement in this piece is something where I've just heard continuously from the leaders that have been on the decision table. I felt like I was on an isolated island. It's so good to know, Kira Marie, that I'm not alone anymore, that there's other humans like yourself that are willing to be part of that change. And I think that this is the amazing thing that has come out of it. I've only been doing these consistently since January the 1st. And because of that, I've realized personally how many awesome humans there are across the globe who are still ready and willing to be part of the change. And for me, that has just been such an exciting part of this work that I've been doing in the last, 2 months. Amazing. Not even quite yet 2 months, almost. So, if there's even just in the small work that I've done in the last couple of months, if there's people that are willing to go, yes, we need a new approach to leadership. Yes, I want to be able to be a smart human using the data that I have to add to the table. And then, yes, I want to see humanity as stakeholders at the table. I just think if we can do that even in a short, almost 2 months, what can we do in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? We can really shift the dial forward from problem to solution as a collective if we collaborate. And so I'm excited about that piece. But again, I'm evolving, and so that's why I'm letting you know of some of the learnings today, of things that I'm learning and continue to learn as I continue to keep moving it forward and going on this leadership journey. Leadership's not this thing where if you put these 3 things into place, you'll be an amazing leader and you've got it sorted. It doesn't work like that. If it does, I haven't worked out that pattern. I don't have that pill. If you've got it, maybe you should contact me, and I would definitely like to know what that is. And here's the thing. I actually really enjoy the evolving. I enjoy the uncertainty of the pathway forward, because with that uncertainty, if it was all, where it's going, I think that would be kind of boring. And part of the fun is the risk that you can take when you get that risk and you know that it's an educated risk and you gain the results from it. Oh my goodness, you can blow up what opportunity and possibility and growth that you can then bring to the table. And for me, that sounds exciting. And and I can't wait to keep learning. I think one of the things that really exercises the muscle is when you are willing to keep developing it and learning. And you do that through learning and growth. And, the day that I have no breath left will be the day that I stop learning, because I want to keep learning. I think that it helps to realize that, there's all of us are learning, and that there is all of us on a learning curve. So some of us are further along that learning curve than others, but we're still all on the learning curve, right? So it doesn't matter if you're at the beginning, doesn't matter if you're at the later part. It's still a learning. I asked the question the other day on my profile, and I said, I think it was on my profile, or maybe it was in one of my Facebook groups, but no, I think it was on the profile. And I said, who has one of your mentors been? And it's funny because I've got like these amazing people behind me, and I want to keep adding amazing people as I learn more about some of the giants. And I love the fact one day someone said to me, I love the fact that you've got the giants and they've got your back. And I'm like, that is such a cool thing, because the reason I love lots of amazing people who have been known as giants in our world is because they've played at a bigger level than maybe some other people, and I've wanted to learn from that. I wanted to gather information from that. So when I asked the question, who is your mentor? And I'd love, hey, if you're listening to this, to put it into the chat. And I'd love to know who your mentor is. But I remember, it's funny because I remembered quite a few of I have different mentors. But I think the thing to learn from my mentors isn't who they are or what they were about, but the reason to why I had a mentor. And I thought that was a good thing that I wanted to remind you guys about. And that is that I look for gaps in my learning, and I go, who is world class at that? An example being this, excuse me. An example being, I was always a speaker. It's funny, I'm not really good at small group when I don't know what to talk about. So, when you go to those networking things, those hideous things, oh my gosh, sorry to anyone. And kudos to you if you can run really great networking groups. I find them hideous when you have to play games or ask stupid questions. Like, I get tongue tied. I look stupid because I just don't know how to reply to them. I'm not good at that. I know it's a weakness of mine, and I'm okay with it. And anyway, so I was like, okay, what is it? So I was good. So I don't even know how I got onto that. How funny is that? Oh, so I went into, like, I didn't want like networking groups. And I've always thought, because I'm an introvert, I don't like going to groups, or I don't like learning off people, because what if they think I'm dumb? What if they think I'm stupid? What if they think I'm like saying stupid things? Like, I really would be down on myself, and I'd literally sweat away about the thought of going and meeting new people or connecting in new groups or going to anything. And so for a long time I didn't. And then I realized that I really wanted to keep being a better whatever it was. And at that time, I was very much a youth speaker, had been doing it for years. And I remember thinking, I actually don't mind speaking from stage. I'm pretty good at this, speaking from stage. I did it because I wanted to see change in young people, and I was involved with a lot of community spaces, and I ended up being, speaking to the youth. And so it kind of became a thing out of a thing. It was sort of like a default thing. It wasn't because I went out and go, oh, I think I should be a youth speaker. Wasn't that at all. I saw the opportunity, I took it up, and realized I actually really like doing it. Here's the thing that I wasn't so good at, and I knew was a gap in my speaking, and that was storytelling. I would be like, I want to tell you the points of things. I don't necessarily want to tell you the context. And I know that story can give you context. It's what I often call the fluff, which is great in some situations. You need it, and I get it. I don't need it, but some people really need the fluff. The context of the story, so that you can understand why those points, or the reason to why I say that this is so important for you to get or to put into practice as a leader, or in your leadership, or whatever it is, right? Or in business, or whatever it is. And I just tipped water all over my leg, and it was really cold. Can I just take a sip for a minute, Wayne? Okay, I just didn't want to wear that beard again. Anyway, so I saw this gap, and this gap was literally the story, the context. And so I was like, who's the best? And I looked around, and anyone that knows Lisa Nichols knows she's world class at storytelling. I have never known anyone to tell a story that I've heard, by the way, her personal story, so many times, and yet I would be captivated by her story and the way she would say it, and what she would say and what she would leave out. And I knew that if I learned how to do that better, that it would have more impact in what I was bringing, and I could bring more impact with what I had to say. And so I went and learned from her. So she's been one of my mentors over the years. And it's always looking at gaps. I remember thinking, I'm going crazy. Don't know if, no one else around me seems to understand where I'm at or what I'm about. And so, like, when I was thinking business and companies and organizations and the way that I was building out ecosystem, and I was like, maybe I'm just losing the plot. And then I looked at who across the world knows how to do that. And I realized that I really wanted to learn how Richard Branson did things. I wanted to know how he thought. I wanted to know he has all these things on, so it can be possible. I'm not crazy. Like, if he can do it, I can do it too. And I remember thinking that. And the day that it came in a invitation to go and be on Necker Island, I just jumped at it straight away. I go, there's my opportunity. I can now go and spend time with them. Do you know what I remember mostly about that particular trip with Richard was I had two opportunities. I mean, there were several, but I just remember these two. And I've spoken about them so many times on the decision table because they made such an impression on me. And they were the moments that I really learned a lot. And that was around, firstly, he heard my story of what I wanted to do, what I was thinking. He was so amazing. He just asked me, as one human does to another, what is it you're about? What are you thinking? What do you want to do? And I just went, bleh. I am sure it didn't really make a lot of sense to him because I am definitely much clearer about it these days than I was when I first met Richard many years ago now. But it's kind of embarrassing even thinking what I probably said. But anyway, it doesn't matter because here's the thing. I remember him coming out of the bushes, and I said this so many times on here, but I want to say it again. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, and he punched my arm because we had this fun thing going. And he goes, Kira-Marie, you punched me in the arm. You are extraordinary. That was it. But I have to say, I felt like he had seen me, he had heard me, and he had given me permission to be me. And all I had to do was give myself permission. That was a major turning point to me. And the other one was when he said to me, like I asked the question, you must get so many opportunities, so many companies coming across your plate, whatever it was. And which one do you choose? And he just said, Kira-Marie, I don't go, what do I choose to do? It's who in my world do I choose to do that piece, that piece, that piece, whatever it is, right? And I was like, wow. That means that I'm not thinking big enough because now I can think even bigger because it's not about me and what I can do, but it's who in my world and how can we do that together. And that, my friend, is where collaboration takes place because I believe that when we can think big, we can bring so much to the table because you add what you add, I add what I add, you over there add what you there add what you. Oh my goodness, we have so much to play with. We can play as big as we want, create an impact, and bring real change. You are not an isolated island. You are not just the only person that wants to do it this way, feels like that you're doing it on your own. You're not on your own. There's others out there. I'm one of them who want to help, grow what we're meant to be growing so that we can bring even more and add value to more of what culture is needing out there, leadership culture. And we can be the change and bring the impact that is needed. But we can only do that if we start collaborating and working as a collective. So anyway, there you go. There's some of my learnings. I hope this has been helpful for you. I know that I continue to keep learning, and it's through these learnings that I keep exercising the muscle of human intelligence. And I believe that when we can use the data that we have within us to add to other people's data that they have at the table, we've got a lot to play with. We can make a lot of difference, and we can really change the direction of where we're seeing a lot of these problems, widening, the gap widening, and we can start narrowing that gap and get it from problem to solution. So, okay, there we go. I will be returning with someone else tomorrow on the decision table. So I look forward to that. And remember, if you've loved this, please share it, love it, and make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us create awareness, and I can't do this without you. So huge love, big love, aroha nui, which means big love to you.